Now watch the screen. Here it comes.
Thank you for coming out here to Santa Monica. I'd never imagined anyone who lives out by the beach even reads or can read. It's fantastic that you would show up here. Thank you very much. I guess I could, tell you about the book, but you already have the book. It's been out for weeks. You probably get the idea. You're smart people. So what I've really enjoyed about doing book signings around the country is the Q&A. So let's Q&A, because, I had that show for all those years, and I got to converse and be with the people, and now I miss it, and I miss you. So I want to know what you're thinking, and yes, sir. Let's start right there at the back.
You're going to be doing some of the HBO, right?
Yes, I have a new show starting in February 21st.
And what's the content?
I'm a song and dance man. It's called The Odd Couple on Ice, and I'm also gay. Yes. Anyone else? No, it'll be an hour, kind of a wrap-up of the week's news events. It will have a roundtable panel, like we had on PI, but more of a permanent group. I think what the audience was telling me before was less Carrot Top. And I listened to the audience, so... But yes, it'll be good, I think, I hope. I'm crossing my fingers. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
What gave you the inspiration to write this book?
To write this book, the inspiration, I would say, was the lack of inspiration from our government. The idea behind this book, as you probably know by now, these are the posters that the government, I feel, should be putting out, the propaganda posters, as they did for every other war we ever had. They had propaganda campaigns to tell citizens what we could all do to help in this war. All our president told us about this war that we could do was to keep shopping. Of course, now that I have a product in the stores, I think that's excellent advice. Keep shop. That man, once in a while, even a broken watch is right twice a day. No, he said keep shopping, go see cats again. That's his idea of culture. He's not the greatest cultural maven that we've had. He was the guy who said he liked the Beatles up until their weird psychedelic period. Yeah, that is when they started to get really shitty, the Beatles, wasn't it? Sgt. Pepper and the White Album, ugh. But, I really think there's a lot more people could be doing other than just shopping, and that's what this book is an attempt to do. The one ad campaign, the one propaganda campaign that our government has is a huge lie, and that is the drugs fund terrorism. If you really want to help with the terrorism war, stop doing drugs, which is a huge lie, and the lazy media does not point that out. I have tried to point that out many times there. The only drug that ever funded terrorism, even a little, was heroin. And, of course, heroin addicts always do the right thing when they hear a public service announcement. It's take the spike right out of their arm when George Bush asked you to stop them. Not to mention the fact that the heroin, that was, only a little bit of heroin money ever found its way to terrorists. But, okay, some of it did. But the people who sold the heroin in Afghanistan were not the Taliban, our enemies. They were Puritans. They outlawed the heroin trade. It was the Northern Alliance, our allies. They were the heroin dealers. So if you really want to help the war on terrorism, start a heroin habit. Do a little skin popping on the weekend. We're not asking you to do everything. Okay. Yes, sir.
Who is the Democratic frontrunner, you think, for the next?
Who's the Democratic frontrunner?
For the next presidential election. Or put another way, who is the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
That is the 64,000. Who is the leader? Yeah, that's the point. If they had a leader, up until a month ago, I would have said Walter Mondale. Right? That's who they were looking for inspiration. The old Carter administration magic that they were bringing back. I don't know. Al Gore. Al Gore has a book out. which this is doing a lot better than Al Gore's book. But, that's not really a feather in anyone's cap. But when we were in Seattle or Portland, someplace where Al Gore was, and we came in right after him, and the people were talking about his session with the people, and he said there, as he has said before, that if he does run again, this time he's just going to let it rip. Which is quite a threat, huh? When Al Gore just lets it rip. But, he could. I would hope that I have encouraged Al Gore. I used to encourage him on my old show to just, he's going to lose anyway. You are a loser. But that can be freeing. When you know you're going to lose, at least I would love to see a Democrat stand up there and say the things that Democrats should be saying, even if you're going to lose. Barry Goldwater did that with the Republicans at 64. He knew he was going to lose to Lyndon Johnson, but at least he said what he believed. And that's what the Democrats don't do. They act like fake Republicans. I don't blame people for voting for Republicans. If you had a choice between a real Republican and a fake one, I'd vote for the real one, too. So until the Democrats find their soul again, then they don't have a leader, and they won't get my business. Yes.
Take on the whole Kissinger point.
The Kissinger appointment? Yeah. Well, when you want to get a guy to ferret out the secrecy in government, it would be Henry Kissinger that you would turn to. A real skunk at the garden party, not part of that inner establishment. Then again, he's 80 years old. Maybe a guy who knows from, being on the inside, when sometimes to catch a thief, you hire a thief. That kind of theory. Maybe that's what they're thinking, but I think they're just wanting to cover it up. But, to me, it's not a situation where we really need a commission to investigate 9/11. The Kennedy assassination, yes, we needed a commission. It was a mystery. It is still a mystery today. 9/11 is not a mystery to me. I don't know why we need a commission. Terrorists hate us. They're from the Middle East. We know who they are. We know what our problem was. We didn't pay attention. We didn't care. We were attacked many times before by terrorists. We kept hitting the snooze alarm, and we're still hitting it. That's the situation. It's not a mystery. I don't know what the commission is going to find. We know what the problem is. Okay. How about that? Yes, sir.
Do you see 9/11 as an act of war or as more of a crime?
Do I see 9/11 as an act of war or a crime? Good question. I see it as an act of war. The war that we're fighting with these people has been going on for a long time between fundamental Islam and the West. They certainly see it as a continuation of the Crusades. We are told by the government we have that this is not a clash of civilizations, but it is a clash of civilizations. We have perversely, I think this is in the book, we have perversely taken the idea of tolerance so far that it has to now actually include intolerance. We have to be tolerant of intolerance. We have to pretend that it's not a clash of civilizations when, bin Laden is one of 55 children. Yeah, we have 2, 3 kids, you have 55. We let our women work, you keep yours in beekeeper suits. So, yes, I see it as a war, and we should treat it that way. That doesn't mean we should go into Iraq, yes.
How are you contributing? Do you ride alone?
Well, I traded in my big Mercedes for an electric car, and I lost my show, and I wrote a book. I think that's enough for 1 year. And I walked here tonight from Beverly Hills. That's... Yes. Who else? Anybody else? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hi. No,
Hey.
With the Democrats kind of pretending to be Republicans, do you think, from your perspective, there's any chance in hell that there may be like a new party in the future that will maybe take some of these stances?
A third party? You mean well, I voted for the Nader party last time. I didn't think he was going to win. I don't even agree with him on everything. But at least he was a guy who said what he believed. I couldn't stand to hold my nose and vote for Al Gore because he doesn't say what he believes. And I know what he believes. He's written it. He won't stand behind it. I'll give you a good example. In his book, Earth in the Balance, is that the book? Yeah, okay. He says we should phase out the internal combustion engine in 25 years. Well, there's an idea. You may not agree with it. I happen to think it's a good idea. But it is an idea. It's a fresh thought and an approach to how we are solving terrorism, energy, lots of problems. But, you know, as soon as the Republicans demonize it and put it in a 30-second attack ad, Al Gore wants to take away your car, the thing you love more than anything. Then he pretends that it's not his idea. He never said it. He doesn't care. He backs away. And I'll tell you something else. Al Gore did sort of invent the internet. He didn't invent it, but he championed that idea. But again, they made it a joke, and he backed away from it, like the pussy he is. Ooh, I said, ooh, he said pussy. Yes, sir.
Yes, Bill, your scintillating view on the war on Iraq.
The war on Iraq?
Yeah.
Did we start it already? I missed the news tonight. Did we? Are we in there now?
I mean, the attempt...
Well, I've been saying for a long time, I have an article in Details magazine this month that says it in great detail, that I thought it was a campaign issue. Now, if he goes to war, that's a different story, but I thought it was an awfully cynical thing to do. 3 months ago, if you read the memos from Karl Rove and Andrew Card in the White House, they basically said, one, war is a good issue for us. People like us, Republicans, war, yeah. That, and also, one of them wrote a memo or gave a reporter a quote saying, you don't roll out the new products until the fall. You know, people are on vacation in August. They had a new product. It turned out to be a war, but it was a new product, and that's just what they did. And they sold us this war, but they sold it based on lies. I mean, I keep comparing Iraq to a case of herpes, which is a disease that you contain, which we have for 12 years, that suddenly, when they needed an issue, became cancer. And I don't think this disease did become cancer. I think it's still herpes. And worse than that, I think we're taking our eye off the real prize, which is Al-Qaeda. And this idea that Bush is trying to sell, that bin Laden is somehow in league with Saddam Hussein, is ridiculous. There's no evidence of it. The idea that a megalomaniac, paranoid dictator like Saddam Hussein would get an atom bomb and then give it to, you take it. Please. No, he wouldn't give it to anybody. First of all, he'd be afraid that bin Laden would use it on him. Bin Laden hates people like Saddam Hussein, the same reason he hates the royal family in Saudi Arabia, because they're not true believers. Bin Laden is a true believer. He's all about Allah. That's not Saddam Hussein. He's about Viagra and oil and gold and power. And that's why he's hated by the bin Ladens of the world. So they are not working together. No matter how hard they try to sell that, they will never sell that. It's a bunch of bullshit. And it's also cynical because when this nonsense first happened after 9/11, one of the earliest things we were told was, you know, don't lump the terrorists in with the other Muslims and don't love Muslims together. Well, now suddenly lump. lump. Same guys, different towels. You know, it's just, that's so, no, I don't buy it. We shouldn't go to war, yeah.
Schwarzenegger or Reiner?
Schwarzenegger or what?
Or Reiner?
Or Rob Reiner? Oh, God. They're not two of my favorite people. You think they're going to run it against each other for governor out here? Is that what you're saying?
I think that they might.
Yeah. Well, Rob Reiner and I have had big fights about smoking. He thinks we should finance everything under the sun on the backs of smokers, which I think is very wrong. I'm not even a smoker anymore. But, I mean, when does it end for the smokers? When do we say, you know, there are, I know it's the greatest evil in the world. It's like smoking, the terrorism. But at some point, you know, you just got to say, hey, we all have a bad habit. I think it's interesting now that they're going after the food companies. I've been saying that for years. People said, what have you got against heavy people? Nothing. I love heavy people. But if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. In other words, if smokers are the ones who cost us, why am I talking about this? You asked me about Arnold Schwarzenegger. But Rob Reiner, when I think of Rob Reiner, I think of all the fights I've had with him about the smoking issue and that. But I would not like to see either one of them sitting in a governor's chair. Not that it would be much worse than we have now. Yes, sir.
Let's suppose if things were possible in America.
What's that? Are all things possible in America?
No, I'm saying things seems possible in America with the technology. We have the best engineers in America.
I agree.
You agree?
We do. We have the best engineers in America and the best trains. But what's your question?
My question is, what are they waiting to build an instant public transportation network nationwide to resolve the American public transportation crisis?
Why don't we have better public transportation in America?
Do you agree?
Out here?
All over America.
We should have better public transportation. Damn straight.
So the question is, because you seem to be introduced in the political milieu, than to have all kind of opinions about that. Maybe it is being talked about.
Right. You mean it would save oil and that kind of thing?
Because I read a resume from a computer convention held by Al Gore.
Right.
And he said that well, we have the technology to build an instant transportation network all over to resolve the public transportation crisis in America without hurting the society.
Well, let me answer a question which may not be the one you're asking. But on the subject of public transportation, do you know that in the 1920s or maybe the 30s, probably someone here knows better than I, we had a fantastic light rail system out here in Southern California. And I'm not even a conspiracy theorist, but I have read enough to know that it was a conspiracy between General Motors and the oil companies, and they killed it. We would not be living under this. Remember how we had smog, and we still do?
This is a question that can be asked by a child. If you take account that this country goes to the moon, has the technology, has an interplanetary transportation, because the space shuttle is an interplanetary transportation.
Well, first of all, we can't go to the moon anymore, you may have noticed.
If you have
We
such
stopped going
a
to the moon.
technology, what
I used to love it when we went to the moon, because then whenever some little piece of shit on the house didn't work, you could go, God damn it, they could put a man on the moon, but they can't make a cannon. Now you can't do that. Now you can't. God damn it. Well, they can't, but it doesn't work. It's not like we could put a man on the moon anymore.
Controversy. It's a technologically controversial issue, because you are not able, the American buses are not even, don't even meet the Hindu standard of buses.
Yes, and I'll give you something even worse than the buses not meeting the standards. SUVs. Talk about lies in government, are listed as light trucks. They do not have to conform to the mileage standards of passenger vehicles, because they're not passenger vehicles, they're light trucks. SUVs, I never saw a passenger in one, did you? It's mostly gravel that they're hauling, sometimes a ton of sand, logs, because the people who drive them are rebels. You see, they're rebels, they're off-road vehicles. Wherever Lewis and Clark went, ditto the Navigator, right over the mountain.
Take to build an instant transportation network.
I'm doing what I can. I don't know. Another question, please. Yes, ma'am. I have, I only, I do not. But people ask me all the time, and I'm flattered and amused, because I am the last person in the world who could ever win a political office, because my opinions are about as far from centrist as possible. You know, whenever you run for office, you have to move to the center. Even Nancy Pelosi, I see, is suddenly mouthing poll-tested drivel like the rest of the submoronic automatons who run this country. I thought, oh, finally, here's somebody. I don't even agree with her on a lot of stuff, but, you know, at least she speaks her mind. Well, they took her mind away. Now, no, not going to speak her mind. She's got a little taste of power. So I would rather have my mind and not an office. But believe me, I mean, you're talking to somebody who thinks religion is bad and drugs are good. That's not a good way to start a campaign in America. That does not work. Yes, ma'am.
Any other issues that almost threatened your show over the years?
Yes.
And do you foresee, what were they, and also do you foresee any problems with HBO in totally letting your opinions out there?
I don't foresee problems, but I wouldn't be knocked over by a feather if there were problems either. But I think HBO is a whole different ballgame. I mean, I think the people are a lot cooler. I always say it's no suits, no censors over there, and I think that's what it's going to be. But yes, certainly we had problems over the years with ABC on a number of different issues that I did get in trouble for. It was just that last one was sort of like the coup de grace, the final headache that we could not take a big enough aspirin for. We got to get rid of this guy. But yeah, I don't really want to go through them again because I'll get in trouble again. But yes, I did say things that got me in trouble, but they were, as usually, all true. Yeah. Yes, Mr. No War.
To say we miss Mr. Show.
Thank you.
A group I'm with is going to have a comedy event. The theme is Good Riddance 2002 Comedy Review, and I hope everyone comes out on New Year's Eve.
So there's more of a plug than a question, really. That's okay.
No, I want to ask Bill about the National Rifle Association. Did you see Bowling with Columbine?
I not only saw it, I helped him with the premiere. I did a little Q&A. I mean, we came up on stage together and talked to the crowd and got the questions going. He's a good friend and a great filmmaker. It's a terrific movie.
So what's the read on that? I remember you used to take a pretty good stand against their policies, and want to thank you for that. What's going on?
Well, I have not changed what I think about guns. I think people in America should be allowed to have a gun. A gun. One. And not a machine gun, not some modified, Gatling gun. Yes, I do understand why people need a gun. I think it's, I don't think people who, live in Beverly Hills and don't have problems with crime should be able to say, oh, no, you can't have a gun in your house. But a gun, how about a little regulation? We regulate everything in this country. The idea that people need to have more than, I know in some states they tried to pass a law, the legislature introduced a bill in many states that said only one gun a month. I'm not kidding. You could only buy, and it never passes. People are like, what about Christmas? One gun a month? I mean, please. So, yes, I am for gun control. Let's control that a little better. Yes, sir.
What do you think we can do to end the horrific prohibition on marijuana? I mean, it really seems bad to me.
There's a place I'm really doing my part.
It seems like
I think. I always say people have to start dying from that drug, because the drugs that people die from are legal. Lots and lots of hundreds of thousands of people die from tobacco, from liquor, even legal drugs, like aspirin kills about 7,000 people a year. But the last time I checked, every year they ask how many people die from pot. Zero. So unless people start dying from marijuana, and I would be willing, if someone would like to try to kill me tonight, I will be the Spartacus for this movement. But short of that, I don't know how else. I mean, I spoke at the normal convention this last year on 420. 420, get it? And
420. My feeling about the 420 association with the marijuana movement is that 420 is problematic. A lot of people know that to be Adolf Hitler's birthday. And so it seems like it gives a very dark or bad color, if you will, to that marijuana movement. It seems to me to make much more sense if they did it exactly 1 week earlier on Thomas Jefferson's birthday.
Well, I think the movement has a lot bigger problems than the fact that 420 falls on Hitler's birthday. That is the kind of thing, I'm sorry to say, that stoners think of. And not that you're a stoner, but, I spoke my heart out to these people, and they're lovely people, and that's their problem, is that lovely people do not get their way politically. What this movement needs, all the causes that I'm involved in, always need a mean son of a bitch They need a Lee Atwater. They need a Karl Rove. They need people who take no prisoners and know how to play that political game. And unfortunately, the marijuana movement, is gentle hippies who are stoned. So that movement just never goes. Yes.
I was wondering what you thought. What do you think is America's responsibility on in the international scene? What do you think America?
What is America's responsibility on the international scene?
Other countries, to other nations.
Well, in this book, there's a number of posters that have "Why They Hate Us" on the bottom, because I think one of the major things we can do, that we must do, if we want to live in security, is to answer that question. That is one of the things people in this country can do, is they can start learning about the rest of the world. First, just be aware of it. That's our biggest problem. One of the posters says they hate us because we don't even know why they hate us. And that's true. We don't. I remember after 9/11, that was the big question for about a month. Why do they hate us? And then, of course, we got bored. And then whatever. What the fuck? We're good, We're good. We're perfect, If they make us even think about that, then they win.
They don't hate us, they hate the government. Okay, that's propaganda. Us. I have friends that have been over there. They don't hate us. It's the government and the policies that they hate.
Yeah, but we live in a representative democracy, so some of that does come back to us.
Yeah.
And they do hate us to a degree also. Yes, they hate the government and what they call our foreign policy. But I think, to get back to your question, and not that that's not involved, because it is, one thing we can do is to have an awareness. We are a very myopic people. Even within this country, the local news is a lot more popular than the national news. People like to hear about what's going on right in their backyard. It's like, oh, there's someplace I drove by today. And also we sort of feel like American lives are more valuable than any other lives. If there's a bombing overseas, 3,000 were killed, 2 were Americans. 2 were Americans? God, no. One of the posters in there is a depiction of the Olympics we had in February, where we insisted on bringing our tattered American flag. And you know what? Almost every nation could bring a tattered flag. History's a bloody mess. We're not the only ones who have been attacked. But, since it happened to us, that was the attitude. I think that's the attitude the world sees. And I think when we begin to change that attitude, we will live in security. And as long as we live suspended over this pool of hatred, we will never live in security. They hate me.
No, this is my opinion.
I'm the one who said they weren't cowards.
This is my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they hate the American people because the American engineers do not go to work.
You're a little obsessed with that subject, sir. They hate us because we don't have a good light rail system. It doesn't really seem like... Wrap it up? Okay, we're going to have to wrap this up. Who's going to get the last question? What? Okay.
I heard you on the radio recently
say
that you only believe anything with 90% certainty. And
99%.
99, you said. Okay.
Right. You're right. I'm a 99%er. I do believe we're here now, but we may not be. Really, this could be your dream. It could be my dream. You could be John Malkovich. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, so I think I adhere to that way of acting in the world too, but the problem comes, how do you make any decision with 100% confidence?
Well, you can't. But I think it's much worse to believe that you know the answer 100%. That is a form of arrogance that I think we see in our government today, and from a lot of people who are 100% certain that they are correct. You can't be. How about a little humility, about your own humanity? I think that would serve us a lot better. I'm pretty sure of a lot of things, but no, I'm not 100% sure of anything. And that's what the deal is here on Earth, So, okay, thank you for coming, and let me sign your thing. Oh, we're leaving?
Thank you very much. Okay,
So here it is, as promised. Now you can talk back. Now you can yell at me. Now you can have your say, or not. But if you want to, this was always a fun thing when we did it on Broadway, and we put microphones here if you want to walk up, or we can just say, I said it all, and take a powder. Yes, sir.
So, do you have anything to say to Ari Fleischer now that he's no longer the White House press secretary?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I've been asked that many times about, you know, Ari Fleischer in response to what I said Americans need to watch what they say. And I've always maintained that, you know, Ari Fleischer made a comment that, speaking off the cuff, sounded bad, like I did. So, you know, if I can get a break for speaking off the cuff, I give him one too. I don't think he really meant that this America should turn into a Stalinist place where Americans have to, you know, look over their shoulder because they're going to be a show trial. I think he just was speaking extemporaneously, and that's what happens when you do. So I'm not going to tear him up for that. Yes, sir.
I am wondering how the word liberal became like the word fuck, and how can we change that again?
I couldn't agree more, yes. If some people sometimes ask me why aren't you a Democrat or why don't you support the Democratic Party? If there's one reason, one thing I have against the Democrats is that they never defended the word liberal. The word liberal, yeah. They let the Republicans demonize it, and by doing so, like I was saying, you know, with estate tax or, you know, pro-life, it's all about getting the right word or demonizing the wrong word. And, you know, no one from that party ever stood up and said, you know what, look up liberal in the dictionary. It means open-minded and forward-thinking. Those are not bad things. Those are things I think I would want to teach my children. So, you know. Yes, sir.
Regarding the 86-year-old man who killed 10 and injured 36 last week with his car,
yeah.
I was just wondering where you stand on the elderly operating heavy machinery.
Is that who did that?
I think so.
I thought it was Halle Berry.
I thought it was my I thought it was my grandfather, but you know.
Well, you know, you might as well just give up on this issue, and I'll tell you why. Because the elderly vote in this. And so no politician, there will never be a constituency there to change this law, because I think it's still true that people vote in the percentile of their age bracket. In other words, 20% of 20-year-olds vote, and 70% of 70-year-olds vote. So that's not going anywhere. Don't waste your breath. Yes, sir.
Yeah, tonight, I mean, you talked about a lot of interesting topics. One thing that hit me was talking about the issue of the Catholic Church and the scandal, which is a real scandal. And like you, I was raised Catholic. I am still Catholic. I went to Catholic schools. I was never aware of any of this. Doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right.
We know that it did.
I wasn't either, right.
We know that it did. But I think in terms of percentages, probably less than 10%.
Well, that's still a little too much.
Wait,
I'm sorry, but you know, it's like,
okay.
Excuse me, but only 8% of the kids in Catholic school are getting rammed up the ass. Now, what is the fuss about?
No, but
I mean,
no, but,
leave no childs behind. Yes.
Yeah.
So we all know that we don't want Bush to be president, but who can beat him and how?
Well, I'm sure not everyone here is part of that. We all. But I don't think anyone can beat him because, like I said, you know, half the people think that Saddam Hussein was involved directly with 9/11. 43% think we found weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. 22% think he used them on us. Flight suit, big cock. Game over. You know, I mean. So, yes, sir.
My name is Jamil Gordon, up from Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I have one quick comment and then a question for you.
Yes, sir.
The comment was, I was a little bit offended by the lumping that you did as far as Muslims are concerned. In my experience, Islam takes on a lot of different cultures. Like Morocco is very different than Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So I just want you to feel that.
Yeah.
As well, my
Okay.
question is, us as Americans that do care about making our world and our country a better place, what can we do? Like, do you have any advice for us?
Well, I think one thing Muslims could do would be get in the game. I mean, the reason why I don't feel too bad about keeping it real with the Muslims is because, like I mentioned, Salman Rushdie, okay? When there was a fatwa, I think I pronounced it falafel, but that's what I meant, on Salman Rushdie, I don't remember anyone in the Muslim world standing up and saying, you know what, this is ridiculous. The Muslim world let this cancer grow, okay? They have not done their duty in shouting down the extremists within them. That was my point about Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson. Our culture has put our extremists in their place. The Muslim culture has not. So are they directly responsible for terrorism? No, but they are indirectly responsible. When nobody stood up and said, this is ridiculous what's happening to Salman Rushdie and things like that, they became indirectly responsible and complicit in this. So I don't feel bad about it, sorry. Okay. But I hope we can still be friends. Anyway. Yes.
With the attempted impeachment of Bill Clinton for lying to us about a blowjob, do you believe that the current president should try to be impeached for lying to us about the weapons of mass destruction that led us into the war?
No, definitely not. Because as I said, the Democrats voted for this war. They had their opportunity to call him on his bullshit back in October, but they thought that it would hurt their political standing. He's so popular, they didn't want to get against him. And that's when they should have done it. Nothing has changed since October when they voted for this resolution. They're the ones who abdicated their responsibility. It says in the Constitution, Congress has the right to declare war, not the president. But they gave him a blank check on that. Did anybody back in October vote for this war because of what was going on in Niger? Was that the sticking point? I don't think so. So to make this big thing about the Niger thing, yeah, it's bullshit. Yeah, he's a liar. You're surprised that George Bush is a liar? That anyone who's in politics lies for a living? It's like when the dog drinks out of the toilet bowl. I'm not surprised. That's what he does. And I personally do not have the stomach to go through another destroying a president. Even I'm not a big fan of George Bush, as you know, but come on. I can't live through it again. We've done that too much. The Democrats have to be the ones, I think, to take one for the team and stop this cycle of personal destruction. And in the end, it won't work anyway. You're never going to win by play-hating against George Bush. He don't play the gotcha game. Hi.
Hi. On civil rights, I have to disagree with you on one thing. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican.
Yes.
A lot of people think he wasn't. Everett Dirksen, who passed the civil rights law in '64 against,
Yes.
guess who the big advocate against the civil rights law was? Al Gore Sr. Everett Dirksen was a Republican,
Right.
and Al Gore campaigned in 2000 saying, my father was a big early advocate of civil rights. On what planet? Really, I don't think that's
No,
the anti-Republican thing on civil rights is at all fair.
You have correctly identified the factual error in my show.
Thank you. I can now sit down.
You're all right. The Republicans were not the ones who were selling them. They freed them. But it was just too funny. Yes, sir.
The U.S. has had a long time to learn about terrorism on our own shores. Even just going back to '93 when they tried to bomb the World Trade Center and only did a sort of half-assed job of it.
Right.
And of course, Clinton during that period said, well, not much else is going to happen. We're not going to really focus on it, and there wasn't much budget for anti-terrorism, et cetera. And
that's not true. He worked on bin Laden a lot more than Bush did before 9/11. Bush did not have one meeting about terrorism from the time he got into office until 9/11. Clinton had them every week. Clinton was obsessed with bin Laden. He just didn't get them.
But as far as the funding to develop an anti-terrorism network and to really do counterterrorism efforts, et cetera, do you think that this country is really committed to fighting terrorism, especially this administration, or are they just committed
No.
to maintaining oil?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm not going to stand here and say George Bush doesn't want to win the war on terror. He does, and he obviously is a patriot who cares very much about America. But he also cares equally, if not more, about getting reelected, which means taking care of his political base, which means taking care of his donors. I'm not so sure that that's not more important, or that he thinks he can do them both, which he can't. And as I said in the show, you will know we get serious about the war on terror when we give up the war on drugs, because you certainly can't do both. Right after 9/11, John Ashcroft said, we have to concentrate on doing a few things well now. We can't do everything we used to do. And I thought, right on, this guy really gets it. Next thing I know, he's busting Tommy Chong. I'm not kidding. Tommy Chong is going to jail because he was selling a product called Urine Luck, which was clean urine for you know, cheating on a drug test. And people who have head shops and sell paraphernalia and, you know, medical marijuana, they're busting cannabis clubs. Because, you know, people with bone cancer who need a joint to ease their pain, they're not going to get away with that shit under John Ashcroft. They may have fooled the last guy, but that shit don't fly in this administration, buddy. Bone cancer. Come up with a better excuse than that. Yeah. That's the biggest lie he ever told, that he's a compassionate conservative. Yes, ma'am.
Before you went on air, you said we could call you a motherfucker, so I just want to call you a motherfucker. But
all right, duly noted.
Okay. First of all, I love you until you start talking about women, and I sort of agree with you on some points. And when you came up with Presidue and the Arkansas, I called my mother at 1 o'clock in Alabama. I said, he said the Presidue in Arkansas, and he's brilliant. So I just want to say that.
But what is it that I said about women that you find wrong? Just tell me what's wrong.
It's not that it's wrong. It's that it seems like... No, it's wrong. No, here it is.
Tell me what I said that's wrong.
It seems like, you know, before the feminist movement, it was a certain way. All women really had was fantasy. They didn't have any power. They didn't have any jobs. They had this romance novel crap. And what else are they going to take with them when they finally get a little power is this romance novel crap idea, because they never had anything else. So it's sort of overcorrected in the wrong way. It went to the extreme. And it seems like you think it's going to go back to just what men's biological urges, that's correct, as opposed to some sort of middle ground. And I'm just wondering if you think there's a middle ground, or if it's really just based on men want to fuck, and they want to fuck who they want to fuck, when they want to fuck, and women, go read your goddamn novel and don't tell me about it.
When was I talking about any of this?
You're talking about old and new, which is
Old
really
and new.
about fucking the old one, getting tired of her, and going to the new one.
That is the male biology.
Okay, but what about the female biology, which takes care of the children? And I know you don't want any, and that's fine. I'm not asking you to have any.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Please don't. But
Because I don't want to have this fight again, not in front of the kids.
I know. So I'm just saying, you know, that is women's biology. I mean,
You're
the
right,
nurture.
absolutely.
So it seems as if you're saying that the natural state is men's nature and not
The
some
natural
compromise
state for
between
us.
both.
I wasn't saying for you, I was saying for us.
But wait a
I was
minute,
saying-
how is the species going to continue if it's just your nature?
But it isn't just our nature. You see why I don't get married? I was just saying that in America now, it is the woman's point of view that has become the de rigueur point of view for the whole country, and the men have to pretend to go along with it. We have to, when somebody says women are smarter...
Overcorrection. It's overcorrection.
Well, yes. Well, there you go. Then we're agreeing.
And do you think it comes back to the middle, or do you think it goes back to men and coming on people's
I think you need both. I think we were happier when we had both. That's why you need yin and yang, male and female.
There's a book you should
read. And the men, the problem is that the men are the ones who pussied out. The men are the ones who gave up. And I'll tell you why I think that happened. Because 50 years ago, a man could end any argument with that. And they did. There's an I Love Lucy episode where Lucy pretends to have a sunburn so that Ricky won't hit her. Ralph Cramden ended every show with, to the moon. I mean, that's only 50 years ago. But it was obviously so accepted that a man did not have to learn how to argue. A man didn't have to win an argument with his mind. And once we, weren't allowed to do that anymore, thank God, we sulked. Instead of learning how to win the debate, we didn't. So we did sulked in our tent and pretended to go along with everything you said. So there's not an equal, there's not an equal debate going on.
Okay. You should read a book called The Femininization of the American Culture. It actually agrees with you, and it's written by a woman, and it's pretty interesting.
There you have it. All right. Yes.
Hi. The Supreme Court recently came down with their decision on affirmative action.
Yes.
I actually thought you'd include some material of that in your program, but anyway, can you give us your comments about that, as well as throw in your comments about that sodomy decision they made as well?
Well, I wouldn't lump them together. But I do believe in affirmative action. I always have. I think, I'm always embarrassed for the entire white race when white people start complaining about things that black people are getting, when white people complain about having to drink a single drop of the injustice and contumely that black people have had to gulp in gallons for centuries. It's the least we could do, considering what happened here in America. I mean, I don't think we're so bad overseas. I don't think our foreign policy has ever been that bad. I think as a superpower, we have been rather gentle to the world. But in our own country, we have a lot to answer for. Slavery and genocide, those are not venial sins when you get up to the pearly gates. So I'm definitely for affirmative action. As far as sodomy, I'm also for that. I think it's also embarrassing that it's the 21st century and we just got around to legalizing ass fucking. I mean, and by the Supreme Court, 7 impotent old men and 2 dried out old hags passing judgment on blowjobs and ass fucking. That's just astounding. Now, I mean, if you look at what's going on in Europe, now, in most countries in Western Europe, certainly Scandinavia, but also France, Germany, the concept of marriage has pretty much gone out the window. In some countries, it is over 50% of the people who are living together with kids, but they don't want to get married. They feel like it's legal on a piece of paper and there's no reason to do it. So they don't get married anymore. Most of Europe does not go to church. 90% of France, for example, says they're Catholic. 10% goes to church. A lot of the countries have legalized or decriminalized, to a very small degree, marijuana and gay marriage. So that's where the world is heading. That's where the world is. No religion. It's imagined. No religion. It's only this dumb fucking country that's bringing up the rear on all this shit. So it's about time. Everybody, the Supreme Court. Yeah, it's 2003. If people want to do it in the naughty place, let them. Yes. Yes.
Hey, Bill. How you doing? You said just before that your running for office would be an exercise in futility.
Yes.
Being that, your views are not the mainstream.
Yes.
From how I see it, I mean, you see through all the bullshit and you focus on the truth.
Thank you.
Why wouldn't that be the mainstream?
Because that's not what the mainstream does.
That is scary, no?
It is scary.
Yeah.
But you know that half this country thinks that Saddam Hussein was directly involved with 9/11. I mean, that is so unacceptable, that level of ignorance in a democracy that depends on the participation of people. I don't mind losing that debate about the war, and we did lose that debate about whether to go into Iraq, but I sort of do mind that we lost it because half the country had the facts exactly ass backwards and wrong.
But, I mean, isn't that all the more reason why someone like you should go for office?
But I would never win. I mean, look, we talked a little bit before about they demonized the word liberal. You're talking about mainstream. The new one, the new phrase from the people who gave you estate tax and pro-life and the rest of them is out of the mainstream. That's the word that they're trying to put across. You're out of the mainstream. In other words, wink, wink, you're not a good American. So they're moving the debate from liberal, that wasn't enough for them. Now, if you're just out of the mainstream, if you don't have blind Bush love, you are somehow suspect as an American. Don't ever let them tell you that. Be out of the mainstream. I'm out of the mainstream. I enjoy it. Who wants to be in the mainstream? You know, when Ronald Reagan was running, he'd always say, "It's morning in America." And everybody would smile, and I would think, yeah, but I'm not a morning person. You know, I'm the guy who thinks religion is bad and drugs are good. I think children are innocent, God doesn't write books, and Jesus wasn't a Republican. I think girls hate each other, no doesn't mean no, and drunk is funny. I'm for mad cow disease. How am I going to win that? I'm against suing tobacco companies. I think abstinence is a perversion. I think Bush's lies are worse than Clinton's. I think Vegas was better when it was run by the mob. I think men are only as loyal as their options. I think stereotypes are true, and rehab is for quitters. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're a great audience. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you, folks.